Oh, so
I think
what was it that was specific that somehow kept women out?
Well, they don't. I don't really know, and I can't quite often get asked that. And I've tried to do like some, searching to find out what it was. But I think they were just designed by men for men, and they'd only been tested on men. And then
Sure.
when they saw this huge disparity between men and women that were passing, they realised there was an unconscious bias within their testing system. So they actually spent a lot of time. In fact, it took them 4 years to come up with a new design. I was then front line, and I just got back from serving in the Gulf, and I came back and they said, Flight Lieutenant Wells, would you come back and redo these tests? And I thought, oh my God, what happens if I fail them now? Am I just really crap? They're just going to get rid of me and say, yeah, you failed the test, even though I'm qualified. But I passed them then with flying colours, which one would hope, because I did have quite a lot of experience by then. But yeah, a bit scary.
Yeah, well, I love too that you point out that you find out that you don't pass this initial battery of tests, but you have just won an aerobatics competition. You have two flight
Yeah.
instructors vouching for you. So it's not as though there's any question about your ability at all, right?
No, so it was just interesting, and it was an interesting time to be going through. So I just think, yes, there was a lot of luck. There was a lot of dogged determination of not giving up as well, and and it's just that perseverance, isn't it? When you need to, is it? I tell you what it's called. They should call it the grit factor.
They should call it the grit factor. I think, Mandy, you have the grit factor, and I so wish, I so wish I'd talked to you before that, but this is why we get to talk today. So, which is perfect because you certainly have it in spades. But, I think back now, like as we're talking about this, and think back to, it's one thing to process that, when you've done it, you've already done it, you've gone through your career, you're now an ambassador, you're out talking to people. But like thinking back to yourself when you're 20 or 22 years old, it's different, right? It's a different place where I at least did not have the confidence that I have today when I was 22 years old. So how do
No,
you would you describe, like, because there's a lot of anxiety, and you talk about that, right? I wrote down one of your quotes. I was aware that I had been taken on as a sort of a test case, and there was a huge burden that came with that, right?
yeah, because you're sort of not wanting to let people down. You're constantly trying to, live up to those expectations, and are really aware that if you then fail,
Yes.
you're almost sort of giving them all of the evidence that they need to say, yeah, well, that's because the reason women are failing the test is because women are not good enough. And so I
Right.
really felt this need to pass. But the other thing that it really planted in me was this horrible imposter syndrome. And I never had it before that point. I'd always been quite confident.
Yeah, yeah.
And suddenly I was told that I was being taken on to see how far I'd get, probably before I failed. And that just planted this horrible seed of doubt, and every time I would struggle, I'd think, oh, is this as far as I get? And there was always that in the back of my mind, I'll be honest.
Yeah, yeah. No, I can absolutely relate to that. And I think back as you try to process these things and try to understand them, and I know there's so much happening in all different branches, not just of service, but also in the corporate world and in other places as well, where we're saying these types of ways of presenting things or interacting with people, they have an impact in the everyday moment, and they have an impact over the course of your ability to show up, right? And it's really, I think Deborah Rhodes at Stanford called this a double crucible, right? This idea that women or minorities that are coming into these positions and are both having to deal with the complexities of the position, which are really difficult, right? You're deploying to combat, you're flying fighters, you're doing these crazy maneuvers. And on top of that, you have this additional kind of full-time job of managing this challenge of feeling like an imposter, which somebody else has imposed, right? It's not that you
Yeah.
went in with that necessarily, but somebody else is sort of requiring that you manage that on top of the requirements of the job.
Yeah, and I think, you put on top of that as well, you're the only woman. Like
Yeah,
on a squadron of 200 men, you're the only woman, and all of
right.
those little intricacies that go with that as well. And you're thinking, I don't think I realized quite the burden on me at the time. What I've realized since leaving, I think at the time I just wanted to fit in. I wanted just to be the best I could be. I didn't want to let myself down. I didn't want to let future generations of women down. But I just was doing the best I could do.